Hello everyone, welcome to another History Skills video. Today we're looking at how to evaluate the contestability of historical sources. Contestability is a source evaluation skill which requires you to acknowledge that different historical interpretations can be supported by the surviving evidence. Being able to identify and explain this skill in your historical writing shows a sophisticated understanding about the complexities of the past. As a result, you may need to watch this video 2 or maybe 3 times to make sure you fully grasp the idea. So let's get started. What is contestability? Contestability is the idea that two separate sources can draw different conclusions about a historical person, concept, or event. Contestability most commonly occurs between two modern sources, typically academics, who have studied the surviving material in detail but hold two different interpretations of the past. The possibility of different interpretations is often caused by a lack of surviving primary sources for anyone to know for certain which interpretation is most likely to be correct. For example, two archaeologists could look at the same remains of an ancient ruined building and draw different interpretations about its use. One could argue that the building was a temple, while the other could argue that it was someone's house. Since the available evidence could support either theory, both interpretations are valid, and the function of this ancient structure is contested. However, be careful. Just because two different sources may have different opinions doesn't automatically show contestability. Both sources need to be considered reliable sources of information in order to trust their interpretation. If you find that one opinion is from an unreliable source, then its interpretation is not considered a valid basis for contestability. For example, a university academic could say that the Egyptian pyramids were built by humans, while a conspiracy theory website could say that the pyramids were built by aliens. Just because they have different opinions doesn't show contestability. In this example, the website is far less reliable than an academic, and therefore its interpretation can be discounted. So how do you identify contestability? When you're reading and researching sources, look for any of the following things. Firstly, two different sources could provide contradictory explanations of the same thing, such as significance, motives, or consequences. Secondly, two different sources could use the same primary sources but draw different conclusions. Thirdly, a source mentions that there are alternative ways of understanding the topic. Or finally, a source specifically mentions another author that disagrees with their point of view. If you notice any of these things, it could indicate that the topic you're investigating is contestable. On such occasions, take the time to record the names of the different sources and record how they understand the topic. It might also be worthwhile recording the evidence each source quotes to justify their interpretation. Now that you know how to evaluate sources for contestability, let's look at some examples to solidify your learning. Our first example is about the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten. The surviving archaeological and written evidence for the reign of Akhenaten shows that he attempted to radically change his kingdom by abolishing traditional polytheistic religion in favour of the worship of one god, what he called the Aten. What we want to know is why he did this. What motivated Akhenaten to attempt a religious revolution? One academic, the famous archaeologist Sir Flinders Petrie, looked at the surviving evidence and concluded that Akhenaten was motivated to do this because he was a sincere believer in the existence of one god, the Aten. However, another academic, historian Donald Redford, looked at the same evidence, yet argued that the pharaoh used religion as a mask for his real aims to enforce a new dictatorial government structure on his subjects. As you can see, both academics draw different conclusions from the same evidence. Both interpretations come from reliable sources, and therefore Akhenaten's motivations are a contestable subject. Our second example is about the Australian bushranger Ned Kelly. Ned Kelly robbed banks and killed police officers, but was also famous for writing a letter in which he explains that he only did these things because of corrupt police who unfairly targeted his poor family. Even though Ned Kelly was eventually captured, found guilty of his crimes, and hanged, debate still rages around whether he should be considered a hero or a villain. One historian, Malcolm Henry Ellis, has looked at the available evidence and has concluded that Ned Kelly was simply a violent criminal who used force to get his way. However, another historian, Manning Clark, looked at the same surviving sources, and he concluded that Ned Kelly was a hero that should be praised for standing up to injustice. As both interpretations come from reliable academics, it is clear that Ned Kelly's legacy is also a contested topic. Now that you have a better understanding of contestability of sources, I hope that you feel more confident in your studies. If you need further explanations, examples and advice, head over to historyskills.com and I'll see you next time.